Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom over me. And before I be a slave, I would rather meet my grave. 'Cause I'm free. Set me free. Leave me be. I am free. It might not look it to thee, but I am free. And I'm free because I choose to be. I understand my deprivation and lack, but still, I choose free. But what is free? If I cannot be me, then how can I be free? If you judge by what you see, then am I truly free? Freedom. What a prospect. For some, it's how you feel. For me, it's how I be. I am free. I'm free just like that generation that took to the streets and said, you might have arms, but we have bricks. I am free. Jigi jela gamache Sabashaya gamache.
So the whole question about guys I grew up with, right, and how our lives have turned out differently. We spend most of our time here. Like, these are guys, we used to come here and play soccer every single, weekend, right?
Vusi from very childhood.
He just started making different choices. And it started with small things, like he would steal people's soccer boots at a soccer match and sell them. And then would be coming back from a soccer tournament somewhere and he would have stolen somebody's laundry to sell it. And then stealing laundry became housebreaking, And today he's been in prison for most of his life. Because when we were growing up, we all had the same role models. The guys who drove the fancy cars, dressed well, were thugs. He and I saw the same things, and that's what he's grown up to role model. And now those are his chains in his mind. He's chained by that, he's held by that, he's imprisoned by that, he's enslaved by the idea of what success looks like. For me, it's a bit different, and I suppose my chains are what I want to achieve, right? So it's, well, how far can I push this thing? How far could we go?
I was privileged that the Nelson Mandela Children's Fund volunteered to be part of the project. Privileged not only because it is a children's fund started by Utata himself, but also because the caliber of young person you find and encounter at the Nelson Mandela Children's Fund is the likes of which you've seen here today. So in my mind, I was thinking long and hard when we started putting the concept of the show together about how do we bring something new to the discourse we're having every single day. A discourse that permeates in our lives, it permeates in our spaces, it permeates in our mental spaces too, about who we are, where we are, and why we are. How do we tackle a subject matter that seeks to elevate us collectively? Let me make a few submissions up front. What we've put together here today, I'd like to think is part art and part fart. And there'll be a lot of guesses along the way, but those of you who know me well enough to know that there will also be some offense. So just get ready for that part of the journey. We work deliberately hard to bring to the mind of our own consciousness a very deep and psychologically offensive idea that every person in this room, all of you, are slaves. All of you. Do you see, better the slave in chains, because he's aware of his slavery. But free him from chains and bind him to systems of enslavement, and he's fooled into an illusion of freedom. The illusion of freedom. Oh, you're all familiar with it. The illusion of freedom that says, as long as I speak that English. The illusion of freedom that says, as long as I live in that suburb. It's the illusion of freedom that says, as long as I get that job. Let me just get that tender. How about if I keep those people? I must, of course, be at that event in July. And so here we are, and we walk, and we permeate in our spaces, and we go, me, I could never be a slave. Of course I'm free. Do you know who I be? Funniest slaves, I think, are the educated ones. These are the easy to spot. They feel the need to put their qualifications on their business card. Yeah, I said it. You were laughing, you just kept quiet now. Now you're like, but the show but so what are we slaves to? Like, if we're actually to break it down, have a real conversation, what are we slaves to? In my mind, I think we're slaves to four things. The first is we're all slaves to conformity. The idea that society, which, by the way, if you're not familiar with it, society is nothing but a system of functional averages. What is the average? Can we function? Make it normal? And anyone that exists outside that space of normal, we tease, we point, we find folly, we make joke. So of course, Vusi must be a coconut. Kuza kanjani umfana selokishini akhulume isiNgisi better than people from England? Oh, it couldn't be possible that he speaks such good English because he's been doing elocution lessons for 15 years. It couldn't be that, right? Of course he must be a sellout. What kind of young black guy under 40 years old has made his own money? He must have sold out. Oh, lo hlala next door. Ungamnaki lawyer. Lawyer? No lawyer. She sleeps with men for her tenders. Because I've not made it, I cannot find credibility in your making it. So what I'm going to do, having surrendered my own free will, my talent, my ability, having fully surrendered it to society and this system of functional averages, I'm going to point and make folly at those who dared to buck the system. I'm a slave to conforming. And worse, on Twitter, I call myself woke. If you're not clapping, I'm probably talking about you. Some, I see you in this room, you're all slaves to your fears. Hey? Some of you have sent me those emails about that business you have to start. It's such a great idea. Like, if I just did this thing, the world would change. But why don't I? Well, because, you know, kids go to school, bond must be paid, household must be maintained. So I want the life and the dream, I just don't want to pay the price. So what do I do when I see somebody who has paid the price? I point, I find joke, and I make out of them folly and tomfoolery. I'm a slave to my own fears, I just don't see it that way. And it's deep because until we, as a generation, tackle these issues, what we will do is we will leave them to the next generation. You see, it's written in the good book that the sins of the father will be inferred upon the son. Sooner or later, demons not dealt with by you are inherited from those of you. Slaves, worse, Slaves who think they are free. I'll tell you my best type of slave. You find a lot of these in South Africa. The slaves of ignorance. These are so easy to spot because they cloud their ignorance in sophisticated English. They typically have radio shows. Not always, but typically. Or they love giving themselves words and titling themselves in manner that allow them to analyze without taking zero risk. Political analysts, they'll call themselves. But you've never started a political party. Business analysts, they'll call themselves. And they've never written a business plan. They sit on the sidelines of society, use frameworks of academia to critique you and me, but shield themselves of their own deepest fear. The fact that actually they are just plain ignorant. They exist in all kinds of spaces. You find a lot of them too in the townships where we come from. These are the young ladies who grow up into a specific world that functions in a specific way that tells them who they should be. And ignorant of an alternative, they surrender themselves to that world. Say what you will about Ugedlehlekisa, but he wasn't lying when he said, Yinde lendlela enihambayo, yinde. Wa. So these, what do we change first? Where do we go? Our minds, our social spaces, our functional spaces? Or do we start with the one conversation everybody's talking about today? Real economic change. One of the things that is a fascination for me, for those of us who don't study history, is our lack of understanding that nothing is new that we're experiencing. The world has been here before. It's just new for you and me. You see, if you move from where we are, cast your minds to the territories of the North Americans. You land in that country that was founded in 1776, just after the Gettysburg Address on the 4th of July. You know it today as the largest, most industrious nation on earth, the United States. Just after the end and abolishment of slavery, the U.S. said, we must empower the slave. But how do we do so? Well, most slaves worked in the agrarian sector, which happened to be in the south of the U.S. So they said, what we will do is we will grant to each and every slave 40 acres and a mule. Because with 40 acres and a mule, the slave can farm for himself. But nobody asks the question, where does the slave get the seeds to plant? Having planted, where does the slave get the tools to harvest? Having harvested, where does the slave get the logistics to move his goods from his farm to the market? Once he gets to the market, who controls who sells, to whom they sell, and at what price? Wander the streets of your beautiful South Africa and you will find that we are not in lack of young people who have talent, ability, ingenuity, innovation, and skill. What we're in lack of is for those young people to get access to the markets they so desperately desire. So where do you find them? You find them in those places, you all know them, those traffic stops up the road in Grayston, standing there holding some or other product, hoping that you will buy it from them, because if you do, it gives them some opportunity to access a market. Then, it was 40 acres and a mule. Today, it's BEE. So we tell you what we'll do. We'll give you shares, but we'll own them until you pay us using your own money. We'll give you shares. I'll tell you what else we'll do. Having given you the shares, how about we give you a board seat? Nice fancy title. Fantastic plush German car. Big English. And end every single sentence with that word that lets everybody know you were in the struggle. Chief. But if people still doubt your credentials as a cater, then what you do is you hold all your meetings at Melrose Arch. And rather than use a phone to answer your phone calls, you use a tablet. It's the only bicep exercise you're going to get after all. So why don't we call you that? Then 40 acres and a mule. Today, enterprise and supply development. Why don't we take all these small black businesses? Tell them to start businesses, these young black people in townships. Who do they sell? We're not sure. Where will they get access to markets? We don't know. Will we give them real opportunity? Not really. It's 1% of our net profit after tax. The law says we have to do it. And by the way, what we'll really do is we'll put 40 of them or 50 of them out there, take them, put them on a beautiful pamphlet, publish it to the world and said, well, look at us. This is what we're doing. There's a beautiful Spanish expression that says, earnest intention doesn't need publicity. If you're doing it because you mean it, you don't need the world to know. So let me introduce you to that young man. You know that young man. That one who sits on the sidelines in the periphery of the system, completely locked out from that system, without opportunity to access that system. Every single day he lives just on the periphery of it. He has the imagination. He just doesn't have the access. Let me introduce you to that young man.
Expand your mind. Read a book. Emancipate yourself from the slavery of the mental. Hey, buy a book. Hey. Excel, man.
Njita? Mfethu ngumavusana mina ngifune zonke incwadi.
Small price to pay mfethu for, you know,
Boma malini so?
big investment in your own mind.
Malini kanje?
5 tiger incwadi awuthami.
No ngugaya platform.
Mfethu i-platform mfethu kashuka ama-chain engqondo awuthami.
Eniyazi angiphethanga next boma debit order nyana.
Come on awuthami jonga uyandine phone zangisha nge-e-wallet.
No, kubonga mina, kubonga mina.
Awuthami so jonga 50 150 200 mara 150 ngugaya discount.
Yeah, no, let's make it 149.99.
Yeah, man, accept prayer, man. You know, it's only now that I'm learning what this South Africa of ours is about, you know. Yeah, and now that the Kalu found about things like finding purpose, there's just one thing in actually your grand man. No man ngazama nakanjani na man. Purpose. My name is Progress. P-R-O. This was good. Marapin like Joseph for a couple of years, man. Yeah. Except, guys, man, do you ever get the feeling that something is going to happen? You don't know what exactly when, Mara, this feeling, one man, and it's all you care about when you're during the people. It's preoccupation. Man, that's with you all the time. It's like you are imagining this big wave that's about to come crashing in on your shore. Now, man, bangene njenge tsunami. But love, beauty, and patience, all of these wonderful human ideals just don't make sense to you anymore. Somehow, your life has stopped looking for meaning. Yeah, sure, you hear things, Mara, Afrostani next, man. It's all just words. Fancy words, amagama, pheko kamnandi, by all sorts of wordsmiths and speakers. The only friend you feel comfortable to have around is Mr. Fear. You walk with him. You talk with him. You wallow in fear. And like a beautiful garment, you wear fear. You find solace in fear. You like the warm, fuzzy feeling you get from fear. Fear guides you. And he brings along his trusted friend, Mr. Paranoia. For as long as Uzmisele Uploma with these two friends of yours, you're going nowhere. You're going one way in Fondini. So, something deep inside of you smiles. Something lights up. Something stares. Mara, you're standing in one station when you know you are supposed to be somewhere. Before this station, before this pause, I was on a journey, mna. I was making my way to somewhere. I was looking for something, hoping to be somebody, man. What happened to all of that? Huh? Why am I standing in one station when everything around me is in motion? Sure, I feel this thing that's supposed to happen, but what too much can happen or how, I don't know. I've become that, oh my God, that you people say as you drive up to a red robot. Here's another one. I hear you whisper as you look away in shame and fake pity. Sometimes you flick a coin as you drive away. Oksalayo, at the end of the day, I count my coins and they buy me a piece of heaven. But is it really heaven? Noma kanjani, my story will unfold. I just need to pick myself up and make sure that I'm the one who tells it.
His story is true, not just for himself, but for so many of those young people who, as he said, are stuck in a station. You ever thought about that? You're stuck in a station. You were in motion. You were going somewhere. There was always a destination, but the station is not the destination. Stuck in a station without hope, stuck in a station without access. Many of these young people find themselves doing exactly this, just enough to get by. I thought we said we were bringing about a new form of social thinking that was going to truly revolutionize our country, broaden access, give access to everybody else. We said we did that. But I wonder if we did that or if we just substituted the old with the new. Maybe we went and found the same old fat cats. We gave them a different hue, but they were fat cats nonetheless. Here comes the tweetable graph. So, we fight for this thing, right? We call it a liberation. We bring it into our new dispensation. We say now everybody has access. But there is a ticket to play. And the ticket to play is who you know and who knows you. And unless you are known, it doesn't matter what you know. So we'll create a system of education that infers to you knowledge is the currency when actually it's not knowledge, it's access. It's who can you buy and who can buy you. The system of capital is a funny thing. I've spent a long time in my life studying it. And I've realized that capital does three things. It's actually an amazing thing. All capital around the world behaves in exactly the same way. The first thing capital does is it congregates towards capital. Then it accumulates more of itself. But more importantly, it excludes those outside of it. That's how the system of capital works. Anytime somebody says to you, we will broaden access, liberalize markets, and collapse monopolies, give them a bank and see what they do with it. For those of you who didn't get that, it's what we call a subtweet. I'm subbing you. Kusho ukuthi ngi-insulta high agree. Fanele uyibhale uthi konje bekathini uthe oh yeah hey uyadelela lo mjidi yazi uyadelela man hey. I love how a black man is not allowed to be assertive. Don't you love that? Like you must either cower or you are arrogant. But you can never be assertive. You can't stand your ground. You can't say this is wrong. You can't say I have an opinion and it's informed. Either uyazitshela or ucabanga ukuthi ubani. What do you mean, why must I explain this to you? Like I know who I am. Why are you asking me? The question isn't who am I, it's who are you? Who are you? I don't feel the need to belong to a mass organization, my identity self-affirms. I don't feel the need to congregate in numbers. I am 1,000,001. And in the ideology of groupthink, we lose our own identity. So we've taken these big fat cats who used to stay in Stellenbosch and praat lekker Afrikaans. We said, well, get rid of them. But what do we do now? Do we broaden to everybody else? No, just bring in new fat cats. They were not being civil, so we'll just make them Cyril. For those of you who are not hip-hop heads, credit to Questa for that line. When your own people will sell you for a McDonald's burger. For those of you who are insulted, don't. This is not an attack on a person or a party. It's an attack on the system. It's the system of capital and how it organizes itself. But the worst thing about the system of capital is this. It's that it is parasitic. It eats away at the consciousness of society. It finds innocence and it corrupts it. What it does is it clothes itself in the fancy whiff of the cherry cigar, the roar of the V12. We went sithi siyayiqeda inhlupheko. Kanti sizoziqeda ngenhlupheko.
Xolo yasithanda uVusi ubehlala afunda. Udadewethu atsho athi hey uVusi yazimbalo isimanga. uVusi kushona ubabakhe siyakhala ngapha siyangena siyafunda siyangena siyakhala siyasebenza uVusi uhlele encwadini bheka uyafunda uVusi makhala icingo angithi manje ngeleza ikhathi basakhula boVusi wayengekho ama cellphone mhlambe ke sineyikoloda belungu bayasifuna sisibhalise inamba yabomakhelwane uVusi izangena ifone uVusi akumemeze uyi mawuyi uVusi akana sikhathi sakho uhlele encwadini Vusi kanti wenza ini hayi mama ngiyafunda ngifuna ukwenza lo uVusi le motivational speaking uyiqala sase high school a will more kula uVusi aqala khona ke waqala wayenza le motivational speaking ahamba ayama overseas asasomntwana afunda isikolo kuza khule namhlanje oba sayenza
uVusi ngangilibele ngibuza uthi kanti Vusi nifundelani kangaka yini le nifundayo uVusi achaze igogo mani indele ndaba ngithi phela Vusi mina ngifundanga cela ungichazisele nje uthi soloku libele useyinqwadini awuhlali nathi wena useyinqwadini wena hey gogo lento engiyifundayo ngifunda ukukhuluma isiZulu impela ngiya renovate abantu ukuthi ngikhulume nabo ngendlela eright ithi noma dukile angaduki hey ngangimbuza uVusi kodwa ngatholisisi kahle angifuna uqemba abantwana abantu ngathuka kabi nasebafona ukuthi koko vulela iTV uVusi lapho uyayibona le nto le ukujabula kwami kakhulu wonke umuntu nibonile umzukulu wami noma ngifike ejimini abogogo hey zanele sibona umzukulu wakho hey zanele sibona yabona ngijabule nami ngibone kahle ukuthi hayi manje sesizaziwa la kule family phela besingaziwa
Mokazi, ke tla reng? Matlo. Matlo shem ke watch it. Yeah, you can look. I don't mind. As long as you stay in your lane and don't mess with mine. Whitey, a lot has happened, but none of it is my fault. And if it were up to me, life would not be so hard. Yes, it shouldn't be. Whitey, we only live it once, guys. So, twanti be nice. Ibele monati, everywhere. And that is my new mission in life. To make things better for myself. Yeah, it's like I'm my own Tuma Mina project. You know, all my life I've been told that I'm not good enough. Nah. My mother said it, my teachers said it, my only sister said it. It's been the soundtrack to my life for as far as I can remember. And Whitey, I've tried and tried to make everyone around me happy, but let me tell you, it's a mission. And it's tiring. So one day, it dawned on me, yeah? Like an epiphany. Khori, this life that I'm living is mine, just mine. And that's how I live it now. So one day, I'm walking down the street, minding my own business. At first, I ignored it, move on. And then I heard a voice say, "Hello there, baby." Phew. One of these shivers through my spine. I turned around, and it was him. Usqeda. That's what they call him around here. Usqedu Goma. The one who quenches thirst. Whitey, I couldn't believe it. You know, girls would kill to get attention from Usqeda. But now, at this moment, he only had eyes for me. That's how we met. And my life has changed now, Lamo. I've been to the July, 3 times. And he buys me the most amazing dresses. Wonderland. And walking catalog. So, buddy, he's like the United Nations at your doorstep. Hair jacket, English. Watch, Swiss. Pants, French. Shoes, Italian. Lili Zazalako, America. You know, he takes me to the jazz festival every year, go Cape Town. And how do you feel really A-grade people? High. And then we just sit there, you know, and sometimes I don't understand what they're talking about. Kamo, kiri piano, tsadi jazzy, dan dronka, like. But I guess it doesn't matter, right? All that matters is that oh, that's champagne to you, my friend. But I love it. It's not cheap, no. 5K a pop, 10K, 20K, and so on, young Todd. Forget a toast. It's toasting women. Yeah. Women like me. And guys in the club, they hit on girls with a bottle or 10. Shame. Those who say they don't love it, they're just jealous because no one gives it to them. I'll tell you, it's good on a laid-back date with good music, good food, and good sex under the moonlight. It's like an orgy, yeah? Like a sexual experimentation. It's like swinging on steroids. I see them, and their judgments. They look at us. So what if he's older? I mean, he's just 55, and I'm 20. So what? Who should I sleep with? 20-year-olds who can't even afford to buy me airtime. And besides, it's my body, and I can give it to whoever I want. So what if he's older? I'm not the only one who does it. Yeah. It's a norm around here. So I have to go and pick out a dress because Usqeda is taking me to Limpopo this weekend. And after that, guys, it's true. I'm dreaming of far away places. So, when? What can you tell me? What do you know? Because everyone around here knows me. Hey, I'm out there seeing the world, meeting Batu, doing my thing. Say my name, say my name. Ngisaya ga ngoba ngiyojola elimpopo.
A change in a person can happen so quick, I tell you. Like, bah! Lightning speed. You know, just as you think that you know someone, they just change in front of your eyes to a point that you ask yourself, Nare, in my neighborhood, that happens all the time. Life, my heart breaks for young people. There is not much we get to see. You know what is considered cool in my neighborhood? It's nothing but trouble. That's what you see. That is what is around you. And finish and clear. You know, for as far as I can remember, I've always had the heart for Rutobi. Toby. You know, if you did not understand what the meaning of the word stunning was, you just, and just right there and there, you got it. Toby stood out. Toby stood out. You didn't even need binoculars to see her coming from a distance. Toby if it riding, it got really litsatsi, kalefata. And the tweeting bird stood still and on silence as she passes. And that day, and I just kept on thinking, oh, one day is one day. One day is one day. And my dream was just so simple. I needed to study hard, and which is what I'm doing now. And I'm loving it, you know, to study hard and start something. Something that is mine, something that I can build it large. Le Toby, le. Wana, sepono no sidikoti marameng. Ka se fatlogonyana se se kgolokanyane o itse ka re khalalelo ya ngwedi. But you know what they say about time, right? It passes. It moves on. And as the sun continues to do its daily walk across the sky, we change too. The Tobile I knew was during the spring days of our lives. No, this is theory. Aisa. Hayo. Ya, gona le bana ba ge ba banyane ba mo se Tobile, mama, nya, Tobi nya. Tobile we metse saga ya modende. Gora khone go etsa moriri. Gora khone go reka dai brutal fruit e one. Tobile o phemile dimpentse tsa ge go khone. For eng for mang? Gore mang a tlo go ntsha go ka se a re bereke mbarotlhe. E mona Tobile na o ke mo itse o itse re ke empe bo Tobile ga bana gane sepe. Go ka se imagination is a fucking luxury. Na Tobile ke mo fostana ne re Tobile tsena ka kasi o tla motshita ba tshwarana ba re fe na re le bone gore ke magwetse ke Tobile e mo fosana kana ke go tshela mpana o tla le tshita le 1 level la le rai slanda mapogoto maipitla ka straw la paperweight. That is the Tobile that I knew. Or Yashasha.
No, kunjalo.
Man.
He never did get Tobile. I did. It's because I'm Zulu. There's that beautiful song by Bob Marley. He says, emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. For those of you who've not grown tired of my singing, today I said, I'm singing. Many people don't know, those aren't Bob Marley's words, actually. They're the words written by famed American academic W.E.B. Du Bois. And the idea was that you could only free yourself if you freed your mind. The worst corridor to walk, the darkest nightmare to be in, perhaps the most narrow of prisons, is in the mind. Because there, you are your only company. You write the rules. So, Mujita was right, you know. There were many young ladies like Botobile, and a lot of them have lost their way. We all come from places and spaces where we know them. And perhaps even sadder than this is the idea that we've not done much by means of bringing to them some semblance of potential, some hope for the future. It's a tough gig. It's a real tough gig. Every person in this room has that story. We all have that story of that family member who has spent a year or two in a prison. And the question to ask is, coming from, as I did, the spaces you and I come from, why did some of us make it out and others didn't? Was it the luck of the lotto? Was it just the draw card and who got out? Was it how we were raised? Was it the proximity of our relationships with our parents? Was it how we were taught and socialized? Or were we just lucky? Which of these is it? It's an important question to ask because until we ask it, we can never address the true psychological effects of the system that we suffered from in the past. And dare I say, and we've been making the point the whole night, the system you and I are still suffering from today. A great friend of mine, a young man called Sizwe Mpofu, once said to me, apartheid didn't die. It was privatized. Isn't that an interesting idea? That rather than eradicate the system, what we actually did is we created higher barriers of walls for people to live into. And most of us here, myself included, were part of the problem. I'll give you an example. A public schooling system is a mess. With the greatest of respect, the idea that you can pass young people with a 30% pass rate in any subject is a farce and a joke. It is, in my view, that's South Africa's biggest systemic threat. Do you recognize that if you pass a young person with a 30% pass rate in maths literacy at matric today, Umalusi tells us that it is equivalent to what was in my day, a 40% pass standard grade maths, grade 9, standard 7. Simply said, they've not understood the theory of Pythagoras. They've barely understood BODMAS. We're not even talking trigonometry. I'm not sure how they spell algebra. Funny maybe for a night like this, but let me tell you what it means for you and me. We live in the same society with these young people, and we can't blame them. This is the system we're in. But the psychological effect we come from says, rather than lift the bar, drop the level of water. That way, more people can stand in the shallows and not have to learn how to swim. Such a beautiful analogy. If I had my phone, I would tweet it. It's a deep psychological problem. It permeates and exists in our country still today. So how do you access it? How do you unlock it? What do you do? Where to from here? You know, we also live in a society that's normalized instant wealth. Just like this. You wake up one day, auna moto. Then, AMG. Or as they call it where I'm from, after my graduation. And nobody asks, how did you get it? It's great. You got it. So whatever the price we need to pay to acquire it, we'll pay the price. I was thinking to myself just the other day, pause for me on this and work with me on this. Lamborghini is an Italian company. It's owned by a series of families. So what happens when you collapse, say, a vendor bank? Well, you take money from said bank and you buy a Lamborghini made in Italy. You took money from one of the poorest parts of our country and you exported it. It's not that you stole, that's the problem. It's that you weren't dumb enough or smart enough to recognize that your thievery wasn't even kept by you or your country. It was leaving. So I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to get this tender, 100 million, because I must buy a Gucci. I will take, then I will export. No, come on, man. I'm going to get that promotion, and once I get that job and that promotion, I have to buy the Range Rover. I will take here, and then I export. How many of us in this room would buy a BMW if it stood for black man's wheels and was made in Katlehong by a young black man? Because all of a sudden, once it's made here by someone that looks like you, it just doesn't have that factor anymore. It's not a vrpa, it's vrha. Ngintshelile ngathi ubengaphosisi umethi yinde lendlela yesihambayo. I'm at a very interesting stage in my life. You know, I'm at that stage now where I'm brave enough to ask questions that I don't know the answer to. And I'm comfortable to live in the knowledge that I don't have the answer. But I'm coming to learn that actually leadership is not about having answers, it's about being brave enough to ask the questions that matter. You recognize most people who've led us to where we are today didn't have the answers. Why don't we take a young boy who grows up in rural Eastern Cape, comes from a royal family, is, let's say, better educated than his peers, who then says, I'm going to free all of my people. When? I don't know. How? I'm also not sure. What I know for sure is I'm going to free them. It's not the answers that matter. It's the questions we ask. The most pervasive psychological imprint of systems of deprivation, the likes of which you and I have suffered for over 400 years, is that they have taught you that you don't have the right to ask the questions that matter. Why must I get on a freeway to go and work in a metropolitan center? Why are there no factories where I'm from? Why must I get on a freeway to access decent health care in hospitals? Why are there no hospitals where I'm from? Why must I leave my township and buy a house I can marginally afford in a suburb where the language I don't speak, the English is beyond me, the walls are higher than I can climb, the swimming pool I'll never swim in? But I must buy into that, because once I've acquired access into that system, then I can say to myself, I've made it. You know, I'm fascinated if you drive to, not so far from here, that little place called Four Ways. Don't be offended, people in Four Ways. You're just a step above Midrand. I can say that I've lived in both of those places. I tell you what I love about spaces like that, and by the way, it's a South African truism. You will leave your home that you come from, that tiny little home that umama wayikhulisa wafaka amagarage, and you will go and live in a one-bed, one-bathroom apartment, smaller than the garage, and you will not even have a garage. And you will buy yourself a R1 million car that will never park in the garage, but under the carport. Because when I ask you, where do you live? You must say, no, ngise 4 ways. Yeah, no, yabona William Nickel, Maut, ngida. Title deed for who? For what? This is the system. It is so divisive, so parasitic, so toxic, and it has captured you for so long that you don't even know you're captured. For those like me who have family friends and family members who've been in those institutions called prisons, you know that the first thing they take from you when you're in a prison is what? It's your name. When you're incarcerated, long before they remove your belt and your laces, they take your name. They give you a number. They strip you of your humanity. You do know when you're born, long before the doctor weighs you, they ask your parents, what is his or her name? The very essence of humanity is my name. But how many of our brothers and sisters wallow in those prisons, nameless and fameless? How many of our brothers and sisters wallow in those prisons without hope of ever making it out? But worse, how many of our brothers and sisters wallow in those prisons, not only because what they did was outside of the system of society, but more importantly, because the system of society itself was designed to keep them out. It's a tough gig, this psychological effect, truly chaining our necks one to the other, keeping us imprisoned for a very long period of time. It's a tough, tough gig. There's a famous American psychologist, Dr. Joy DeGray, who talks about this feeling of a shortened lifetime. She argues, and it's a great argument, by the way, that all race groups that have come from systems of deprivation, lack, repression, and oppression, actually all of them are suffering from post-traumatic distress disorder. We just don't know it because we think we're disconnected from it. I wasn't there in the struggle, but you're raised by the mind of somebody who is. You don't even know you are oppressed. You know what it's like? It's like the fish that spends its entire life in the fishbowl. It never knows that fish were made by God to swim in oceans. For it, the fishbowl is normal. We have normalized so much that is beneath us that it's not just sad, it's actually just a crime. Dr. Joy argues that the only way to truly unlock the mind of those who've been oppressed and repressed is to help them understand the systems of oppression, these real psychological effects.
As a country, the youth, basically, I feel, is talented. Most of them have been to school, and some of them even furthered their studies. Problem is, we are facing the challenge that there are not enough resources within the country to grow maybe our talents or further the ideas that we have. Because, I mean, like, the youth here in South Africa have got many beautiful ideas. The problem is implementing those ideas, you understand, because of resources, as I've stated. So what I feel that we can actually do is that if there can be more institutions whereby we can actually further our skills, because we do have a basic background of education. We just need skills development so that we can implement it in the country, therefore the economy can grow, and therefore sustainability within our communities can also be there.
My dearest Rakgadi Petunia, ndicela uxolo ngento yoba ndigqibele kudala ukubhalela. It's just that things have been very chaotic and I haven't been able to find the time. I wanted to tell you about Tabang. He's doing very well since the last time I saw him. He's even put on a little bit of weight. Thursdays are always better for me. My job's too demanding for me to just take a day off as I wish. But on Wednesdays, I speak to my supervisor, and I know that tomorrow I have to go and see him. On those Thursday mornings, it's like a ritual. Up at 6, freshen up, have a little something to eat, and it's off to the taxi rank. To that long queue, the stench, people's heads bowed all around us. Yindoni ngabantu bethu, they've become like sheep. They bow their heads and hope for a better tomorrow. At the end of the first part of my journey, I jump off the taxi and it's straight to the supermarket. Tinned fish, toothpaste, toilet paper, sweets, box of tobacco, and body lotion, and. It's been like a year now, these visits. Empty conversation. Court day, your hope rises. End of court day, nothing's changed, and your hopes are dashed. And then it's the same thing all over again, the Thursday. Whoever called this place Sun City needs to have their head examined. There's nothing sunny about it. Everywhere you look, it's gloomy. Oh, I only come here to see my brother. He's been here for a year now. He won't be given bail. We wait as they call out the names of the people being visited. You wait just to hear the name of a loved one. Tabang Muikezi. That's my brother, my twin brother. You know, they insisted that we wear the same clothes when we grew up. Same color shoes, same color hats. My whole childhood, I looked like a boy because with Dad, I just thought, 2 of the same, and that's fine. Sorry, another queue. But this time to take a bus to B Maximum, the awaiting trial section. I get on the bus, find a seat, put down the load that I'm bringing for him. You look around and all you see are sad faces. Mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters just like me who've come to visit a loved one. You know, the only happy faces you see are of kids because they don't fully understand. Immediately, I'm envious and I wish I could be a kid just so that I could be oblivious and not know. As I sit on the bus, the anger consumes me. Because I know the minute I see him, something inside of me is going to die. To see Tabang on the other side of the glass makes me weep. But only on the inside, because I won't let him see my sadness. I keep telling myself, Radu, this is not about you. It's about Tabang. You know, life wasn't always like this. Tabang, he had a great life. His life was full of promise. Yabona, Gababantu man, he had a spark, straight A's. There was something inside that said he was destined for greatness. What went wrong? Oh, it's easy to shift the blame. Indoni, the bunch of funny friends that he hung out with and got up to no good with. Orlando Mazane behlala pha kwesa strato who liked nice things and then he felt pressured. It's all too easy to shift the blame, find an outlet for your anger and frustration. It doesn't change the fact that he's still here. You know, the streets we walk on are like morgues. We jump over dead bodies in wonderment. And then someone says to me, your brother, Tabang, he had something to do with this. My twin brother, Tabang. Oh, no, you must be crazy. What? No. You know, you turn away, you can't believe it. The truth of it is weighing you down. You know, as we're in the waiting area, I see a little girl. Oh, she giggles and she's playing hopscotch. You know, it makes me wonder, how could a life so full of promise one day just fall apart?
Maybe what we said when we said we were free was that we were free to start to think, to question, to dream, to probe, to answer. Maybe what we meant when we said we were free was that we were free to start looking. But I would humbly suggest we're nowhere near true freedom. And it's not just in the economic sense, it's in all spaces. How can a life that started so innocent end in the manner that so many do? You know, the folly of the middle class is most of us think that we made it because we're better, or because we studied harder, or because we were more studious. Now, I'm not saying we didn't make choices to get us here, but I am saying you were also lucky, very lucky. The question to ask is, for whom else will you create that space? Who else will you empower? I'm fascinated by people who think that you must empower only once you've achieved. You don't rise and then lift. You lift as you rise. As you go up, you take others with you. And make adjustment for the fact that many of them will let you down. They betrayed Jesus. Who are you? So humanity, in a sense, is also quite dark, but the hope of what it means to be a human being is that above and beyond everything, we believe in each other. In my career, I've had an amazing privilege. I've traveled all over the world, met the most fantastic and amazing people, all over the world. But there's something about coming to this place called Africa, this here continent, these 54, what is now 55 states with the splitting of the Sudan, these just marginally above 1 billion people. There's something about this place called Africa that you'll never find anywhere else. And it's hard to put down, like it's hard to write it down, to put it in text, to say, this is what it is. Like it's very difficult to do that. But when you're here, you just know. You know you know. For those of us who travel to the UK, it's a bit like standing at the line in the Piccadilly, and there's somebody across you on a train. They're looking right at you, and they're saying, don't you dare say hello. You know, for us, we even have signs that we placed on our windows saying, your pen is nice, but not on my window. Dialogue is not even something we're waiting to have. We're having it using signs. Don't you think South African taxi drivers should export their bumper stickers? I think it would be a fantastic business. I read one the other day that said, "Seng tef tseg." Like it doesn't matter who to zotin. Seng te. Oh, you gotta love being a South African. You gotta love it. I'm not sure if you guys saw it, but there's that meme going around. And it's a Zulu guy, and he's standing right next to a window, and he's saying, when a Zulu guy sees two people arguing, he just says, why am I shy? It's who we are and what it means to be South African. It's how the Zimbabweans find the need to accentuate every single part of it the way, do you know? Because if you are going to be against the robbery at Gabriel Mugabe, that's what it means to be an African. It's how the Nigerians, are the only people in the world, to export Christianity to Christians. You gotta, I love Nigerians are like, wait, you guys at church. It's not like our church, guys. Look at our church. And the world over, literally the world over. I was in Ontario earlier this year, and there is a Nigerian pastor who runs a church in Ontario, and he is milking it. He's pumping it. He's doing really, really well. I mean, the idea that you take Christianity, Africanize it, and export it. You get, that's what we are as Africans. Give us any basic ingredients, and we know just how to put enough aromat on it. By the way, whoever made that meme of me, where I'm fat, and then I'm not, and the meme says, Vusi, but with aromat. I saw that shit. And to those of you that were saying, I look like Tito Mboweni, cut that shit out. I'm good looking. I don't know if you guys saw this. Somebody was tweeting, Tito Mboweni was delivering a speech, and somebody tweeted and said, Vusi Thembekwayo when he's 60. No. But that's what it means to be African, this idea that we are different. And that's what we bring to the world, a sense of diversity. We find humor in stuff. We know how to connect, reconnect, disconnect, and connect again. You know, Africans are amazing, right? You can take a country like Rwanda, genocide just over 2 decades ago, now one of the fastest growing countries in the continent. That's the promise of what it means to be an African. You take a country like South Africa. There was a time, guys, just not so long ago, you and me couldn't be congregated in a place like this, in this number, in a conversation this frank. Now, say what you will about the fact that I've taken the mickey, but the truth is that I have the liberty to take the mickey. You might not have seen it. Solidariteit yesterday was marching. They met and gathered in Sandton. It just lets you know that there are LSMs to this thing. And what really struck me about the solidarity strike is that where they met, they first built a tent for them to wait. And they had somebody doing administration and taking registration. Now, I've been to a few marches. I promise you. No one is going, Vusi, present. It's a march. You get the t-shirt and you go. At the same march, I saw people wearing caps and putting on sunscreen. It's a march. You get the point. But the best of these was how they stood assembled, almost in perfect line and perfect queue. There were people at the front, people at the back, and they were lined perfectly in rows. You could count them, actually. Each row was a row of 15, and it went 10 deep. And these guys had an actual sitting arrangement for a march. But the truth is we're in a country where you can do that. If you're wondering what they were marching for, by the way, they were marching because one of the listed companies has just passed an empowerment transaction that's going to be giving shares to the black workers of that listed company and not the white workers. What I found fascinating was the Secretary General of Solidarity saying, we must never live in a country, ever, where people are excluded on the basis of race. Utenke dlehlekisa. Yinde lendlela esihambayo. That's the promise of what it means to be African. Never take that for granted. Never take that for granted, because it's dark, it's gloomy, it's hard, there are difficult conversations, there are many, many letdowns. But along the letdowns, we're still that continent, right? We're still the continent that will give them the most dominating 800 female runner in the world, and the only way they can disqualify her is to question her gender. We're still the only continent that will take a young boy from Soweto and make him host the largest comedy show in New York City. We are still the only continent that will take a young colored boy from Bloemfontein and have him break Michael Johnson's 400 and 800 meter record. We are that continent. That is what it means to be African. That's the story. That's the dream. Each of these examples resonate with you because they stand out in Q. Yours and my challenge is, how do we make the exceptional the average? How do we make sure that every person has access to doing just these things? When we were putting this together, my team and I argued long and hard about where to do this. And of course, that venue north of here, much easier to get to, where you wouldn't have had to sit in the traffic to come here, was on the cards. It's much bigger, houses many more people. So why here? Why Soweto? I'm not from Soweto, but I'm from a place that is exactly like Soweto. We do it here because when, and it will, this entire immersive experience goes viral. It's important for me that the world knows we congregated in a place that felt like home. When I was working on my book, if you haven't got it, we're selling it outside. I think it's $250. You can get a discount, $249.99. When I was working on my book, and it took me 3 years working on it, it was very hard for me to write the end of the book. For those of you who have ever authored a work, you know that it's actually very hard to write a conclusion. The intro is easy because the idea is in your head. You know what you want to say. The body builds itself because having spawned the idea, you have content pieces you can speak about. But what do I say at the end? Do I go low or do I go high? So I ended the book with a prose. It was a letter to Africa. And in this letter to Africa, I questioned and asked of all Africans that you and I should look to a different continent in nature, but also a different continent in kind.
You know, the government has come up with so many bylaws. During the Vusi's period, learners who could not perform well, it was so easy for us as a teacher, because you are the boss in your class, you are the one who are able to see that this child cannot perform well. Now, it was so easy. You'll just take that child to the requirement people who are well trained for the learners who are slower. But now we have to undergo a long process. Teachers end up not filling those forms. And who's suffering there? The learner is suffering, because if he was transferred earlier, placed in a correct school where he could maybe do the work which is suitable for him or for her, that child will be something. Maybe he will be a bricklayer, maybe he will be a motor mechanic, maybe he will be something. But now this system, is failing us.
I've shared the story before, and I'll share it again here today. I had the privilege of meeting the old man Utata twice. For those who've never met him, it's something that the length and breadth of the English language, rich it is in diction as well as in vocabulary, still doesn't have the words to capture the experience of meeting Utata. The first time I met him, I was 17, and I just won the World Championship in public speaking. And so I was sent over to meet him at his beautiful offices in Houghton. And as is the case for most of us, we didn't have a car at home. It was school holidays. My mother, who's in the audience, sent me to meet Utata during school holidays wearing school uniform. Don't act like it's just me. Your parents are like that too. So I went to meet with Utata at his beautiful offices in Houghton. 4 taxis later, you get dropped off at the main road, and you walk about 4.5 kilometers to get to his offices. Got there, and I went to reception, met a young lady. She was young then, she's much older now, Ututu. And I greeted as you do. I said, "Sawubona ma." And she greeted back, and I said, "I'm here to meet Utata." She opened the book, she went right to the end of the book, and she found my name on the visitor's book. She said, "Wenu Vusi?" And I said, "Yebo." She said, "Take a seat." So I went and I sat We all have those spaces. You've been to them, those offices where there's so many people who've sat at reception. As you sit, your bum sinks into the abyss and your knees rise above your eyes and you can barely see what's in front of you. So there I am, I'm sitting, I'm waiting for Utata. Out comes Zelda, big staunch Afrikaner lady. And she walks towards me. She says, "Hi, are you Mr. Vusi Tatum? Vusi Tatum. It's funny, but it's actually not. Whatever race you are, if you've lived in this country your whole life, you have zero excuse not to know how to say black names. I said earlier, the basis of humanity is my name. It's not Vusi, it's Vusi. 2 syllables, very simple, stitched together. When we get to Kakambile, you can attend advanced classes. Vusi, easy to do. So she comes to meet me. She says, "Mr. Madiba will meet you." She takes me to his study. If you've never been, today it's a museum. I invite you to go and visit it. You walk into his study, the door was hinged, locked. And so the only way to open it was to push both sides of the door in. So you push both doors in, it opens, and there in front of you, from the beginning to the end, is a long Persian carpet, a tiny little table, 3 seats on it, wooden cupboards from the floor to the ceiling, books on the cupboards. It looked like a lawyer's chamber. But as you stood, if you took a moment, right across the Pran French window, if you stilted, you'd see just there, a koi pond with the water running. So Zelda says to me, "Mr. Titim, can I get you something to drink?" My mother, she's in the audience. My mom said, "Mntanam, yabona mawufika lapha. Labelungu mabakubuza ukuthi uyophuzana. Batshela ukuthi ufuna itiye." If you don't know why, I asked my mom, I said, "Why?" She said, "Because you see, tea is high tea. Coffee is common." So there I am, and Zelda says to me, "Can I get you something to drink?" I said, "Yes, can I have some tea?" Then she said those words. All of us have heard them. Black people, you've all heard those words. The minute you hear them, your mind goes, "What are we talking about now?" She said, "Will that be jasmine or Earl Grey?" And I said it exactly like this. I said, "Who's Jasmine?" And the next thing I said was, "You don't have Joko." No Trinkonyana. So Zelda goes away. She goes away. She goes to make the tea. She comes back. She brings me the tea with "eat some more biscuits." Important to mention the "eat some more biscuits" because I didn't ask for them. I always thought there was a bit of racial profiling. You know, "eat some more" with Aromet is shortbread at Woolworths, right? It's the same thing. It's just half the size, 10 times the price. So she brings me the tea, and I'm sitting, and you start drinking the tea. I'm very nervous. So as you pick up the tea to drink it, my hand shakes. It spills a little bit on the sauce. That's not really a problem. I put it, and it spills on the saucer, so I put it down. The problem is the next time I pick it up, it spills again, and the tea starts to splatter on my shirt. So I decide that the only way to do this properly is if I drink the tea without lifting it from the cup, which means I must tilt it and lean in. All of you have done this during Christmas when there's Ultramel in the fridge. It's the only time we have Ultramel in the fridge. Christmas is when you open the door of the fridge and you lean in and you steal one sip of Ultramel. Tell you, one of the things I love about us as a race group is I think black people are the only people who have a hierarchy for dairy. You know, like when they do LSM, black, you can just tell with dairy where you are. You know, right at the bottom, starting in Nkomazi. And in fact, below Nkomazi, so it's like Nkomazi, and below Nkomazi is Nkomazi that's expired. If you've never been poor, you've never had expired Nkomazi. So it's Nkomazi, then just above it, Nkomazi, a bit richer, Amasi. And then just above that is skim milk. If you don't know what skim milk is, when you have full cream and then it's half finished, mama kuthela amanzi. Ayigcwalise futhi kuthiwa is skim milk. It's skim milk, fat-free, full cream, and then right at the top, Ultraman. Like if you have Ultraman, you've made it. So I'm waiting for Utata to come and I'm drinking my tea. Most people don't know this, but Nelson Mandela was a giant, and I don't mean it in the figurative sense. I mean it quite literally. He was quite literally a giant. I'm not small. I think you saw me earlier. You see what I did there? You saw what I did there. You saw what I... By the way, whoever keeps tweeting, don't skip leg day, you probably don't have a gym membership. I'm fascinated by people that say don't skip leg day and have never been to the gym. You skip every day. Somebody just said, yeah, I'm talking about you, comrade. So there I am, and I'm sitting waiting for Utata. Now, I'm not a small guy. I'm 6'2". I weigh 101 kilos. I bench press 160. I wear size 11. I can hold my own in a scrum if I need to. Utata was 6'5" when I met him. It said he was 6'6" when he was younger. 6'5". I'm here. He was there. I wear size 11 shoes. He wore size 13. The man, physically, was a tank. You know, most people walk with the heel of their foot first. That's why your heels have got fat and skin on them. It's so that as you walk, the fat and skin on your heel breaks the weight as your foot hits the ground. That's why your heel feels soft and tender. Utata used to walk with the ball of his foot first. So that meant when he was coming, you heard him coming. Now I want you to picture it, right? So I'm this little kid. I'm sitting and I'm waiting for Utata. I keep leaning in to drink. And then I hear, where is he? He's coming, he's coming. Like, Utata, he's coming, he's coming. I put the cup down. And then he says, okay, is he in the study? Yeah, Mr. He's waiting for you in the study. Okay. Go. 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 Gets to the study. He pushes the doors open. He walks in. He says, my son, come here. My father had died some years before then. And nobody had called me my son since then. So Utata says this. And as you might imagine, my stomach starts to tingle. You've had this feeling before. And then my chest gets tight. My throat clogs up. I can't swallow. My mouth gets dry. I can't feel any spit. My forehead heats up. And I know what's happening. I know this biological process. The next thing is sugar water is going to come out of my eyes, down my cheek. It's called crying. And just before the moment, the only thing I could think, with tears teetering on the brink of my eye, the only thing on my mind was, Vusi, do not, as a Zulu man, let a Xhosa man see you cry. So I'm this close to crying, and the only thing I could do was I leaped up, opened my arms, and I gave him a big hug. My face landed right on his sternum, and I was stilted. At my height, on my toes, my face was here. He sits me down. He says, I have been looking forward to this for some time now. They told me you're a world champion speaker. I said, yeah, but Dad. He says, let's talk. I decided on the taxi drive there, that the taxi ride there, that the only way to really have an intelligent conversation with a global statesman who spent 67 years of his life fighting for yours and my freedom was if I said nothing, but I asked really intelligent questions. I formulated those questions. This is the beauty of waiting for Mastalsane, is the taxi must fill up. You have time. You can think. So whilst I was waiting for Mastalsane to fill up, in my mind, I was formulating those questions. I asked him, I said, Tata, is there anything you regret? He says, one. He says, one. His son died whilst he was in prison, his oldest son, and by their belief in their culture, when the oldest son dies, the father must bury him. The father, not alive, the father's equivalent, his brothers, must bury the son. If they don't do so, the son will not see the hereafter. When his son died, Utata went and asked the apartheid government for reprieve to go and bury his son, and the government of the day said to him, if you renounce what you have said about apartheid, we will let you go and bury your son. He wouldn't renounce his beliefs. He didn't get to bury his son. In his mind, his son never made it to the hereafter. This is why I'm fascinated by people who have the audacity, the unmitigating temerity to call Utata a sellout. Just think the next time you make that statement. He gave us the opportunity. What we do with it is up to me and you. All his generation did was give us the opportunity. There are some who call him a sellout on social media. Their own families were keeping the system of apartheid running, working in the factories during the stay-away days. Sometimes before you cast aspersion, you should perhaps take a look in the mirror. You might not like what you see. We get towards the end of the meeting. There's a knock on the door. Zelda peeks her head. This is personal assistant sign for it's time to wrap up. So Zelda peeks her head. He looks at me and he says, I must go. Then he says, but you know, they told me you're a speaker. I said, yeah, what that? He says, but man, you have not spoken. Have you any final questions? This was the one. I thought about it on the taxi drive. I've been thinking about it the 2 weeks before when we got the letter to come meet him. This was the question I decided. I asked him this one. This is it. This is the deal closer. After I ask him this question, he's going to remember me at the very least for the rest of the week. Here was the question. I asked him, I said, Dad, what is your dream for South Africa? And he said, South Africans need a little bit of faith. I asked him, what is faith? He said, not me. Faith is the ability to see the invisible, believe in the impossible, and trust in the unknown. Yours and my challenge as we unlock the systems of slavery that permeate in our minds is to live by a little bit of faith. Thank you. Nice. 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 You guys killed it. Well done. Well done. You killed it. Thank you. That's not.